I'm not even sure where to begin, but I feel like if I don't get this out, it's going to eat me alive. For the past decade, I meticulously saved every spare dollar I could. I worked overtime, took on freelance projects on weekends, and lived far below my means, all with one singular goal in mind: to buy a small property. It was my dream, a symbol of security that I never really felt growing up. My parents always praised my work ethic, calling me the responsible one, and I wore that title like a badge of honor, truly believing it meant they saw and valued my efforts. The praise always felt a little hollow, though, especially when compared to the way they treated my younger brother, Alex. He was the charming one, the one with big ideas but no follow-through. While I was saving, he was racking up debt on failed business ventures and expensive hobbies, all quietly subsidized by our parents. They called it investing in his potential, a phrase that always stung because they never offered to invest in my stability. I was just expected to build it on my own, which I was determined to do, no matter how much harder it was for me. My savings account finally crossed the six-figure mark last year. It was the proudest moment of my life, a tangible result of 10 years of sacrifice. I started looking at small condos, sending listings to my parents in my excitement. That's when they first proposed the family house idea. They sat me down and told me how proud they were, but they suggested more, that a condo was a small dream. They said that with my down payment, we, as a family, could afford a proper house where we could all live together for a while, a place that would be a true family asset for generations. They painted such a beautiful picture. They talked about family dinners, holidays, and having a garden. They said it would be a smarter investment, a real piece of land that would appreciate more than a condo. My mother was particularly persuasive, talking about how she worried about my father's health and wanted everyone under one roof. They even said Alex had agreed to contribute by handling the maintenance and upkeep, framing it as him finally stepping up. It felt like the ultimate validation, like my hard work was finally bringing the family closer together and earning me a central place within it. The plan was that my savings would cover the entire down payment and closing costs. My parents would co-sign the mortgage with me, and their income would help us get approved for a much larger loan than I could get on my own. We would all live there, and Alex and I would split the mortgage payments. On paper, it seemed almost fair, especially with my parents' names on the loan. It felt like a collective effort, a team project where my financial discipline was the key that unlocked this new chapter for all of us. I let my guard down, swept up in the fantasy they were selling. I spent weeks transferring my money, liquidating some small investments, and getting all the paperwork in order. Every step of the way, my parents were right there, guiding me, telling me which accounts to move money to and when. They handled all the communication with the real estate agent and the mortgage broker. They told me it was to take the stress off my shoulders, and like a fool, I thanked them for it. I was so focused on the dream of the house and the family unity it represented that I didn't pay enough attention to the fine print. I trusted them completely. The day of the closing was a blur. We were all there, smiling, taking pictures. The lawyer had a mountain of papers for us to sign. My parents pointed to each spot where my signature was needed, and I just signed. I remember asking a question about the title deed at one point, and my father patted my arm and said, "It's all standard, sweetheart. The bank requires the primary breadwinner on this line." I was the one providing all the cash for the down payment, so I assumed primary breadwinner in this. Context meant me. I never thought to question him further. We moved in, and for the first couple of months, it was exactly like they had promised. We had family dinners, we started a small garden, and it felt like we were building something together. I made the first 2 mortgage payments from my account as we had agreed. Alex did some work in the yard, and it seemed like he was holding up his end of the bargain. I allowed myself to feel happy, to believe that I had made the right decision. The basuri, constant anxiety I'd lived with for years, started to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging and security. The first crack in the facade appeared about 3 months in. An official-looking piece of mail arrived from the county tax assessor's office. It was addressed to Alex. I didn't think much of it and left it on the counter for him. Later that day, I saw it in the trash, shredded. It was strange, but I dismissed it as him just dealing with his mail. But a seed of doubt was planted. Why would a tax document for the house be addressed only to him? I tried to push the thought away, telling myself I was being paranoid after years of financial insecurity. A few weeks later, another piece of mail came, this time from the home insurance company. It was a policy update, and again, it was addressed solely to Alex's last name. This time, I couldn't ignore it. My name was on the mortgage. I had paid the down payment, so why was I not listed on the insurance policy? I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I decided to bring it up at dinner that night, trying to sound casual, as if it were just a simple clerical error we needed to fix. I waited until we were all at the table and said, "Hey, the weirdest thing happened. The insurance policy came, and it only has Alex's name on it. We should probably call them to get that corrected, right?" The reaction was immediate and chilling. My parents exchanged a look I knew all too well, the one they used when they were about to close ranks. Alex just stared at his plate. My mother was the first to speak, her voice falsely bright. "Oh, it's just a formality for the insurance, honey. It's simpler to have one point of contact." I pushed back gently. "I don't think that's how it works. Since my name is on the mortgage, I should be on the insurance. And I've been meaning to ask. The tax bill was also just in Alex's name. What's going on?" My father then sighed, a long theatrical sigh of disappointment, as if I were a child asking a stupid question. He said, "We were going to talk to you about this. We just didn't want to complicate things and worry you. Your brother needs to build his credit and his asset profile." That's when he dropped the bomb, so calmly and matter-of-factly that it took my brain a few seconds to even process the words. He explained that, on the advice of their lawyer, the title deed for the house was put exclusively in Alex's name. He said it was a strategic decision for the family's future. According to, him, since I had a stable career and good credit already, this was a way to give Alex a leg up and establish him with a major asset. The air left my lungs. I just stared at him, then at my mother, then at my brother. I couldn't form a sentence. I had just paid the entire down payment, over $100,000 that took me a decade to save, for a house that was not legally mine in any way. It belonged on paper entirely to my brother. The money was gone. I had willingly handed it over, and in return, I had received absolutely nothing but a shared responsibility for a 30-year mortgage debt. The betrayal was so profound it felt like physical pain. My mother must have seen the look on my face because she immediately went into damage control mode. She started talking about how it was still the family house and how nothing had really changed. She said, "It's just a name on a piece of paper, honey. We are all family. We will always take care of you. This doesn't mean it's not your home." But it did mean that. It meant everything. It meant I had no legal claim, no equity, no power. It meant they had stolen my dream and given it to my brother. I finally found my voice, and I asked them how they could do this to me. I reminded them of all the promises they made, of how this was supposed to be a joint investment. My father's tone turned cold. He told me I was being dramatic and ungrateful. "After all we've done to set this family up for the future, you're going to get hysterical over a technicality?" he asked. "A technicality?" He called the theft of my entire life savings a technicality. It was in that moment I understood that this wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated plan from the very beginning. Alex didn't say a single word through the entire confrontation. He just sat there, looking down at his food, the picture of innocence. He was the recipient of a life-changing gift, a gift that I had paid for with 10 years of my life, and he couldn't even look me in the eye. His silence was perhaps more damning than my parents' lies. He was a willing participant in their scheme. He knew he was getting a house for free, and he knew it was at my expense. He let it happen. The weeks that followed were a living nightmare. I was living in a house that I was paying for, but had no ownership of. The family dinners stopped. The air in the house was thick with resentment and unspoken words. My parents acted as if I was the one who had created the problem, treating me with a cold disappointment for not understanding their brilliant financial strategy. They wanted me to just accept it and move on, to continue paying my half of the mortgage for my brother's house. I tried to reason with them again, this time more formally. I wrote down the numbers, the amount I had contributed, and I proposed a solution. They could either buy me out for the value of my down payment or have the deed amended to include my name as a co-owner. I presented it calmly, trying to appeal to whatever sense of fairness they had left. I thought that seeing the numbers in black and white would make them realize the gravity of what they had done to me. My father took the paper, glanced at it, and slid it back across the table. He told me there was no money to buy me out, and amending the deed now would trigger all sorts of tax implications and was Too complicated. He then said something I will never forget. You always wanted to contribute to this family in a meaningful way. Well, you have. You've secured your brother's future. You should be proud of that. They had reframed the theft as an act of familial charity that I had been privileged to perform. I felt completely trapped. I was living under the same roof as the people who had financially gutted me. Every corner of the house was a reminder of my own stupidity, of how easily I had been manipulated by the promise of their approval. I started spending as much time as possible out of the house, working late and staying at friends' places on the weekends. But I couldn't escape the mortgage payment, which was automatically withdrawn from my account every month. It was a constant, draining reminder of their betrayal. My relationship with Alex completely disintegrated. I couldn't even look at him. He would try to make small talk, to act as if nothing had happened, and I would just walk away. How could he live there, in that house, knowing how it was acquired? How could he sleep at night? It showed me a side of his character that I had always suspected was there, but had never wanted to admit. A deep, selfish entitlement, nurtured and enabled by our parents his entire life. He believed he deserved it. I finally consulted a lawyer, hoping there was some legal recourse. I gathered all my bank statements showing the transfer of funds for the down payment and the mortgage payments I had made. The lawyer was sympathetic but blunt. Since I had willingly transferred the money and there was no written contract stipulating the terms of the investment or co-ownership, my case was incredibly weak. He said it would be a costly and draining, he said, she said battle against my own family with a low chance of success. The lawyer explained that my best bet would have been to contest the transaction at the closing, but I had signed all the documents. My trust in my parents had effectively signed away my rights. The only leverage I had was the mortgage itself. Since my name was on the loan, I could theoretically stop paying, which would wreck everyone's credit, including my own. But it felt like a mutually destructive option. They had put me in an impossible position where my only way to fight back would be to also ruin myself. This realization sent me into a deep depression. The feeling of powerlessness was suffocating. My work performance started to suffer. I lost weight. I felt a constant, dull ache of grief. Grief for the money, yes, but more so for the family I thought I had. I had to accept the fact that the people who were supposed to protect me had instead been the architects of my biggest downfall. They hadn't just taken my money, they had taken my future security and my trust in humanity. The breaking point came about 6 months after the initial discovery. I overheard my mother on the phone with my aunt telling her how generous I had been in helping Alex get on the property ladder. She was spinning the story to the rest of the family, painting me as a willing benefactor and Alex as the worthy recipient. She was erasing the truth, recasting their theft as my choice. Hearing her lie so effortlessly about it was the final straw. I knew I could not stay in that house a minute longer. That night I started packing. I took only my personal belongings, things that were unequivocally mine. I moved methodically, room by room, feeling a strange sense of calm. I was done trying to get them to understand. I was done fighting for a family that didn't exist. My parents watched me, their faces a mixture of confusion and anger. They asked me what I was doing, where I was going. They couldn't comprehend that I was actually leaving. I told them I was moving out. My mother started to cry, asking how I could abandon the family. It was a masterful piece of manipulation. In her mind, I was the one breaking the family apart, not her and my father who had orchestrated a financial crime against their own child. They saw my departure not as a consequence of their actions, but as a personal betrayal of them. The lack of self-awareness was, and still is, absolutely staggering to me. Before I left, I told them that I would not be paying another cent towards the mortgage. I explained that since I had no ownership in the property, I had no financial obligation to continue paying for it, even if my name was on the loan. I told them that if they and Alex didn't make the full payments, the bank would come after all of us, and I was prepared to declare bankruptcy if necessary. I had nothing left to lose, and that gave me a strange sense of freedom. The look of panic on their faces was the first genuine emotion I had seen from them since this all began. They hadn't thought that far ahead. They assumed I would just continue to be the responsible one, that I would never risk my own credit rating. They had underestimated how far I could be pushed. They started yelling, telling me I was ruining Alex's future and the family's name. They couldn't see that they had already done that. They were just finally facing a consequence. I moved into a tiny rental apartment, the kind of place I could have afforded 10 years ago. It felt like a massive step backward, but it was my own space. It was a sanctuary from them. The first month was hard. I received dozens of calls and texts from them, alternating between begging, guilt-tripping, and threatening me. They tried to get other family members involved, feeding them the story of how I had selfishly abandoned my responsibilities. Some of them believed it, but then a funny thing happened. The mortgage payment was due, and they had to scramble to cover my half. Suddenly, Alex had to get a second job. My parents had to dip into their own retirement savings. The financial strain of the house they had so cleverly acquired was now entirely on them. They were forced to live the consequences of their choices. It wasn't revenge, but it was a form of justice, I suppose. The burden was finally where it belonged. I had to deal with the fallout on my credit report. The bank sent letters and my score took a hit because the loan was now in a precarious state. But I followed my lawyer's advice and documented everything. I sent a formal letter to the bank explaining the fraudulent nature of the property deed and my withdrawal of payment. It might not save my credit entirely, but it created a paper trail. It was my way of fighting back, quietly and legally. Living on my own again, I started to slowly rebuild, not just my finances, but my sense of self. For so long, my identity had been tied to being the good daughter, the responsible one. I realized that this role had been a trap, a way for them to manage and exploit me. By leaving, I was choosing myself for the first time in my life. The cost was astronomically high, but the freedom was priceless. I was no longer their safety net. I haven't spoken to them in over a year. I hear things through the grapevine. I know they are struggling with the house payments. Alex apparently complains constantly about being house poor. There is a dark, bitter part of me that takes some satisfaction in that. They wanted the house, and now they have it. With all of its crushing financial weight, they got what they wanted, but they lost their daughter. And I hope, on some level, they understand the price of their greed. The psychological toll has been immense. I have trouble trusting people, especially with anything related to finances. I second-guess every decision. The feeling of being so thoroughly duped by my own parents has left a deep scar. It's a specific kind of pain to know that the people who brought you into this world view you not as a child to be loved, but as a resource to be plundered for the benefit of your sibling. It has fundamentally changed how I see the world. I am slowly saving again, but it's different this time. The joy is gone. It's a grim, determined necessity. I am saving for a future that feels much more uncertain now. The $100,000 they took represents more than just money. It was my 10-year head start on life, my security, my one big accomplishment. Rebuilding that from scratch at my age feels like an impossibly steep mountain to climb. The finish line seems so much further away now. Sometimes I lie awake at night and I replay the whole thing in my head, looking for the red flags I missed. They were everywhere. The way they rushed the process, the way they insisted on handling all the communication, the way my father dismissed my question at the closing. I ignored my own intuition because I wanted to believe in the fantasy they were selling. I wanted to be a part of that happy, unified family they described. My desire for their acceptance made me an easy target. The house itself has become a symbol of their deception. I drive past it sometimes on my way to work. I see the lights on, and I know they are in there, living in the monument to my stolen future. I wonder if they ever feel a shred of guilt. I wonder if Alex ever looks at the walls and thinks about how they were paid for. I suspect not. I think they have probably rewritten the story in their own minds to make themselves the heroes, and me the villain who couldn't appreciate their vision. The hardest part is the loneliness. Cutting off your family, even a toxic one, leaves a huge void. Holidays are tough, birthdays are quiet. There are moments when I desperately miss the idea of them, the family I wished they were. But then I remember the coldness in my father's eyes when he called my life savings a technicality. And I know I made the right decision. I chose self-preservation over a lie. It's a lonely path, but it's an honest one. I'm sharing this here because I want people to know how easily this can happen. Never ever put your trust in verbal promises when it comes to money, even with your own family. Get everything in writing. Have your own lawyer look at every document. Your desire for family harmony can be weaponized against you. I learned that lesson in the most brutal way possible. I paid for my education in familial betrayal with my entire life savings. So now, I'm starting over. It's daunting. The financial hole is deep and the emotional scars run even deeper. but I am no longer their fool. I am no longer the responsible one who cleans up their messes and funds their favorites. I am just me, on my own, and for the first time that feels like enough. It has to be. My future depends on it, because I am the only one I can truly count on to build it. The anger is still there, a hot coal in my chest. It flares up when I think of the vacations I didn't take, the nice things I didn't buy myself, all so I could save for a dream they so casually stole. All that discipline, all that sacrifice, was for nothing. It was just a transfer of wealth from their hardworking child to their favored one. It was the ultimate betrayal, wrapped in the language of love and family, and I don't know if I will ever fully recover from it. My brother now has a significant asset to his name. He has equity, security, and a future that looks bright on paper. He got all of that without earning any of it. Meanwhile, I am back in a precarious financial position, renting and living paycheck to paycheck, just as I was a decade ago. The injustice of it is so stark, so fundamentally unfair, that it's hard to reconcile. Our parents didn't just give him a gift. They actively took from one child to give to another. They must have planned it for months. The idea was too specific, too well executed to be a spur-of-the-moment thing. They saw my savings account growing, and they saw an opportunity. Not an opportunity to help me, but an opportunity to use me. They saw my decade of hard work as a convenient resource to solve their problem, which was my brother's financial instability. They sacrificed my future to secure his. It was a cold and calculated business decision. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found out. Would I have continued paying half the mortgage for years, thinking I was building equity? Would they ever have told me? I have a sickening feeling that they wouldn't have. They would have let me pour more and more of my money into their fraudulent arrangement, only for me to find out years down the line, when it was far too late to do anything at all. The discovery, as painful as it was a mercy. The loss of the money hurts, but the loss of my past is worse. I now look back at my entire childhood through this new lens. Every time they praised me for being responsible, was it genuine? Or were they just grooming me to be the family mule? Every time they bailed Alex out of trouble, were they just teaching him that he would never have to face consequences? The favoritism wasn't just about affection. It was a long-term financial strategy. I'm trying to focus on what I can control. I can't get the money back. I can't change who they are, but I can control who has access to me. I can build a wall around my life to protect myself from them. I am building a new family, a chosen family of friends who have shown me more genuine support and kindness than my blood relatives ever did. It's a slow process, but it's a hopeful one. The house was supposed to be a symbol of success and security. Now it's a symbol of my greatest failure. Not my failure to save money, but my failure to see my own family for who they truly were. I failed to protect myself from them. That's a bitter pill to swallow. I was so busy trying to earn their love that I didn't realize they were incapable of giving it unconditionally. Their love was transactional, and I was on the losing end of the transaction. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is to get out. As soon as you see the truth, act. Don't wait. Don't hope they will change. Don't try to reason with them. People who can do this to their own child are not operating from a place of love or reason. They are operating from a place of deep-seated dysfunction and selfishness. You cannot fix them. You can only save yourself from them. I'm still paying off the small loan I had to take out to cover the deposit and first month's rent on my new apartment. It's a constant reminder of how far I've fallen. Every dollar I earn feels like it's already spent on just trying to get back to zero. The path ahead is long, and I'm tired. I'm so tired of fighting, of struggling, of having to be so resilient. For once, I just wish things could have been easy. I often wonder about the future. What happens when they get old and need care? Will they come to me, the responsible one, expecting me to step in? Will they expect me to finance their care after they stole my savings? The thought is both horrifying and grimly predictable. They burned the bridge, but I have no doubt they will one day show up on my side of the chasm, expecting me to have rebuilt it for them. The dynamic of being the golden child versus the scapegoat, or, in my case, the workhorse, is so incredibly damaging. It creates a rift between siblings that may never heal. My parents didn't just ruin my relationship with them. They ruined any chance of me ever having a real relationship with my brother. They pitted us against each other in the most fundamental way, making his gain directly my loss. We can never come back from that. People say that blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that's not always true. Sometimes the people you are bound to by blood are the ones who will most readily drain you dry. They feel entitled to your resources simply because you share a last name. They see your success not as your own, but as a family asset they have a right to control and redistribute as they see fit. It's a dangerous and toxic mindset. I am in therapy now, trying to work through the anger and the sense of betrayal. My therapist says I am grieving, and she's right. I am grieving the loss of my money, my family, my sense of safety in the world, and the person I was before I knew what they were capable of. It's a long process, and some days are better than others. Some days I feel strong and resilient, and other days I just feel broken by it all. The core of the issue is that my parents see my brother and me as extensions of themselves, not as individuals. Alex is an extension of their ego and unfulfilled dreams, so they pour resources into him. I am an extension of their need for stability and security, so they expect me to provide it without complaint. We were never people to them. We were roles they assigned to us at birth. My crime was trying to break out of my role. My dream of owning a home is not dead, but it is wounded. It feels so far away now that it might as well be on another planet. The idea of saving that much money all over again is exhausting. And this time, I would have to do it completely alone, without even the false hope of family support. But I will do it. It will take me longer, but I will do it. Because I need to prove to myself that they didn't break me completely. I want to end this by asking a question to anyone who reads this. For those who have been through something similar, does the anger ever go away? Does the feeling of being cheated by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally ever fade? Or is this something I will have to carry with me for the rest of my life? I feel like this wound is so deep that it will never truly heal, and that is a terrifying thought to live with. The house still stands, a brick-and-mortar testament to a family's profound moral failure. It represents a theft that was so much more than financial. They stole my past by making me question every memory. They stole my present by plunging me into a state of financial and emotional crisis. And they stole the future I had spent 10 long years building for myself, one sacrificed dollar at a time. It was a heist of a life. It's the casual nature of the cruelty that haunts me the most. They didn't seem to think they were doing anything wrong. In their minds, it was a logical, even smart decision. They balanced their internal books and decided that my well-being was an acceptable price to pay for my brother's advantage. That cold, utilitarian calculation is more chilling than any heated argument or flash of anger. It's a profound lack of empathy that I can't comprehend. I am working 2 jobs now, just like I did when I was in my 20s. I feel like I'm stuck in a time loop, forced to relive the hardest years of my financial life because of their actions. While my brother enjoys the benefits of home ownership, building equity, feeling secure, I am back to square one, trying to patch together a new foundation from the rubble they left behind. The disparity is a constant grating presence in my mind. The ultimate irony is that they always preach the value of hard work and responsibility to me. They raised me to be diligent, to save, to be trustworthy. It turns out they were just teaching me how to be the perfect victim for their scheme. They cultivated the very traits they intended to exploit. They built me up to be reliable so that they could be the ones to reliably cash in on my efforts. It was a long con, and I was the mark from the very beginning. My story is a cautionary tale. It's a warning that financial abuse in families is real, and it is devastating. It often hides behind words like love, support, and for the good of the family. But it is not love. It is a violation. It is a theft of not just money, but of trust, of security, and of one's own future. They didn't just take my down payment. They took my belief in the fundamental goodness of family.